Do you want to know who the baddest hombres of the Old West were? You're going to be amazed as we count down the 10 deadliest outlaws in the history of the Wild West. Number 10 on our list of the 10 deadliest outlaws of the Old West is none other than Harry Alonzo Longabaugh, famously known as the Sundance Kid. Born in 1867, Longabaugh was a key member of Butch Cassidy's notorious Wild Bunch in the Wild West. It's believed that he crossed paths with Cassidy shortly after the latter's release from prison in 1896. Renowned for his exceptional shooting skills and lightning-fast draw, the Sundance Kid was an integral part of the Wild Bunch, a group of daring robbers and rustlers who operated throughout the rugged Rocky Mountains and the vast plateau desert regions of the West during the 1880s and 90s. As the new century began, the Sundance Kid, along with Butch Cassidy and their mutual companion ETTA Place, embarked on a journey to New York City and eventually South America, where they settled in Chubut Province, Argentina, and established ranching operations. But their taste for outlawry resurfaced in 1906, and they resumed their infamous activities by robbing banks, trains, and mining interests across Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, and Peru. Their notoriety grew, and in 1908 it was widely reported that the Sundance Kid met his end in a shootout alongside Butch Cassidy in Bolivia. Yet some historians have challenged this account, keeping an air of mystery around the fate of these infamous outlaws. Number 9 on our list is the American bandit outlaw William Bill Doolin, who was the founder of the infamous Doolin-Dalton Gang. Born in Arkansas in 1858, Doolin wasn't as hardened a criminal as some of his fellow outlaws. In 1881, he ventured west and found employment at a large ranch in Oklahoma owned by Oscar D. Halsell. Impressed by Doolin's trustworthiness and capability, Halsell made him an informal foreman and even taught him basic reading and arithmetic. As the 19th century neared its end, Doolin's life took a dark turn, and he became involved in daring bank and train robberies. Known for his meticulous planning, Doolin managed to avoid capture and serious injury during his criminal escapades. However, the pressure from law enforcement became too intense, and in 1895, Doolin and his newly formed gang were forced to go into hiding in New Mexico. Unfortunately, the following year, a determined posse caught up with Doolin in Lawton, Oklahoma. Realizing that capture was imminent, Doolin made a desperate decision not to surrender. Facing overwhelming odds, he drew his gun, and a hail of shotgun and rifle fire ended his life instantly. Bill Doolin's reign of crime came to a deadly end at the young age of 38. At number 8, we have the iconic American Old West train robber and outlaw, Sam Bass. Born on July 21, 1851 in Mitchell, Indiana, at just 18 years old, he left his home and headed to Texas, where he crossed paths with a man named Joel Collins in 1874. Together they embarked on a cattle drive, but their lives took a dangerous turn when they turned to robbing stagecoaches in 1876. Their most audacious heist came in 1877 when they successfully robbed a Union Pacific train, making off with an astounding $65,000 in gold coins. Bass managed to evade capture by the Texas Rangers until a member of his gang turned informant. In 1878, while planning to rob the Williamson County Bank, they were spotted by County Sheriff Deputy A.W. Grimes. A confrontation ensued, and tragically Grimes was shot and killed. In the ensuing gunfight, Bass attempted to escape but was shot by the relentless Texas Rangers. He was later taken into custody, but his injuries proved fatal. Number 7 introduces us to the mysterious ETTA Place. A member of Butch Cassidy's infamous Wild Bunch and a companion of the legendary Sundance Kid, Harry Alonzo Longabaugh, ETTA's life remains shrouded in mystery as historians still debate her real name, birthplace, and birth date. After Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid decided to start a new life in South America, ETTA joined them in a momentous journey. On February 29, 1902, the trio departed New York City aboard the freighter Soldier Prince and eventually landed in Argentina, where they purchased land in Chubut Province. From there, Etta's fate becomes a topic of speculation and uncertainty. Some sources suggest she may have relocated to Denver, while others claim she returned to South America, only to meet a tragic end alongside Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid in Bolivia. Number 6 brings us face to face with one of the most violent and ruthless men in the Wild West, James Jim Brown Miller. Born in 1861, originally a Texas Ranger, Miller took a dark turn and became an outlaw and notorious professional killer, leaving a trail of bloodshed and terror in his wake. It is said that Miller's gunfights claimed the lives of at least 12 people, but some speculate that his real body count may have been much higher, ranging from 20 to 50 men. A psychopathic hitman, his violent tendencies allegedly began at a shockingly young age when he murdered his own grandparents at just 8 years old, although he was never prosecuted for the heinous act. Miller's bloody reign of terror spread through Texas and the surrounding states, leaving behind a legacy of death and grief. However, his reign of terror came to a violent end in 1909 when he was lynched in Ada, Oklahoma, along with 3 other men. The mob of enraged residents sought revenge for the assassination of a former deputy U.S. Marshal. Stay tuned as we uncover the most notorious figure of the Wild West, John Wesley Hardin. Born in Bonham, Texas in 1853, he was a notorious gunslinger with a penchant for violence from an early age. His path of bloodshed began when he stabbed a classmate as a schoolboy and killed a black man during an argument at the young age of 15. As a supporter of the Confederacy, he claimed to have taken the lives of multiple Union soldiers, driven by his strong hatred of freed slaves. Hardin's reputation as a deadly outlaw only escalated as he grew older. He continued his killing spree, claiming the lives of several more men in just a few weeks. Transitioning from a school teacher to a cowboy and a poker player, Hardin's violent nature always seemed to resurface, leading to yet another killing, this time during a gambling dispute. Hardin's body count remains a matter of speculation, but according to him, they all deserved it. "I never killed anyone who didn't need killing," he boldly declared. By the time he reached his 21st birthday, he was credited with around 27 killings. Hardin's notoriety earned him a reputation as one of the most dangerous gunslingers in the American Southwest, surpassing even Billy the Kid in the eyes of some. In 1872, Hardin surrendered to the authorities but later managed to escape from jail. He became involved in the anti-Reconstruction movement and continued his deadly spree, evading capture for years. However, in 1877, he was finally caught by Texas Rangers in Florida and sentenced to 25 years for the murder of a deputy sheriff. During his time in prison, Hardin's life took an unexpected turn. He immersed himself in theological books, served as the superintendent of a prison Sunday school, and studied law. Remarkably, he even wrote his autobiography during this period. In an unexpected twist, Hardin was granted a pardon on March 16, 1894, and was subsequently admitted to the bar. Despite his efforts to reform, Hardin couldn't escape his dark past. He hired assassins to murder one of his clients, with whom he was having an affair, leading to his eventual downfall. On August 19, 1895, Constable John Selman, one of the hired guns, shot and killed Hardin in the Acme Saloon, ironically it is believed because he had not been paid for the hit job. Let's move on to number 4, Butch Cassidy. Born Robert Leroy Parker in Beaver, Utah, on April 13, 1866, he was the first of 13 children to devout Mormon parents who had immigrated from England in 1856. Growing up in poverty, Cassidy's early life was marked by hardship. As a teenager, he worked on a nearby ranch to support his family, and it was during this time that he met Mike Cassidy, a cattle rustler and mentor who introduced him to a life of crime and taught him the tricks of the trade. In 1889, Cassidy and 3 other men committed their first notorious crime, a daring bank robbery in which they made off with a substantial sum of $20,000. This marked the beginning of Cassidy's life as an outlaw, and he soon adopted the name Butch Cassidy to conceal his true identity. Finding refuge in Wyoming, Cassidy gathered a group of fellow outlaw cowboys, collectively known as the Wild Bunch. Among them was his partner in crime, Harry LONGABAUGH, better known as the Sundance Kid. Throughout their criminal escapades, the Wild Bunch robbed banks and trains across the Southwest, amassing significant amounts of ill-gotten wealth. One of their most lucrative heists was the $70,000 haul from a Rio Grande train robbery in New Mexico. Despite their success, law enforcement intensified their efforts to apprehend the notorious gang. In 1894, Cassidy spent 18 months in prison for horse theft, but this did not deter him or the Wild Bunch. In 1896, they pulled off another daring bank robbery in Montpelier, Idaho, stealing $7,000. Feeling the pressure from the authorities, Cassidy and LONGABAUGH eventually fled to South America, seeking refuge in Argentina. Despite being on the run, Cassidy returned to his life of crime, robbing trains and payrolls until his alleged death in 1908. The exact circumstances of Cassidy's demise remain a topic of debate among historians. While many believe that he, along with the Sundance Kid, perished in a shootout in Bolivia, there are theories suggesting they may have managed to escape, living out their lives under assumed identities. But wait, there's more. At number 3, we have the infamous Belle STARR. Also known as the Bandit Queen, she was far from being your typical rich kid. Born Myra Maybelle Shirley STARR to a wealthy Confederate sympathizing family in Missouri, her life took a dramatic turn when outlaws like Jesse James and the Younger Brothers sought refuge in her family's home in 1864. As she grew older, Belle's love life took an unconventional path, marrying 3 outlaws, Jim Reed, Bruce Younger, and Sam STARR, a Cherokee. Her association with notorious figures didn't end there. Belle became known for acting as a front for bootleggers and harboring fugitives, cementing her reputation as a daring and dangerous woman of the Wild West. However, her life of crime came to a tragic end when she was shot in the back while returning from a general store to her ranch on February 3, 1889. The identity of her killer remains a mystery, with suspects ranging from an outlaw she was feuding with to a former lover, her husband, or even her own son. 2 days following her death, the New York Times called her the most desperate woman that ever figured on the borders. Despite the lack of contemporary accounts or court records linking her to train or bank robberies or murders, she was depicted as a sex-crazed hellion with a laundry list of crimes to her name. According to Glenn Shirley, author of Belle STARR and Her Times, The Literature, the Facts, and the Legends, the report was only true because she died. Almost overnight, the name of Belle STARR became a household word throughout the nation, he writes. She had been elevated to a seat of immortal glory as a sex-crazed hellion with the morals of an alley cat, a harborer and consort of horse and cattle thieves, a petty blackmailer who dabbled in every crime from murder to the dark sin of incest, a female Robin Hood who robbed the rich to feed the poor, an exhibitionist and clever she-devil on horseback, and leader of the most bloodthirsty band of cutthroats in the American West. All this, despite the lack of a contemporary account or court record to show that she ever held up a train, bank, or stagecoach, or killed anybody. Billy the Kid, a name that has become synonymous with the Wild West and the damage of a rough and dangerous outlaw. Born Henry McCarty in 1859, likely in New York City, Billy's life took a tumultuous turn early on. The loss of his father after the American Civil War and his mother's battle with tuberculosis led the family out west in search of a new beginning. Billy's journey into the life of an outlaw began in 1877 at Camp Grant Army Post in Arizona. A civilian blacksmith bullied him, and in a moment of defiance, Billy drew his gun and shot the man. He found himself in custody, awaiting the arrival of the local marshal. However, true to his daring nature, Billy managed to escape before the marshal's arrival. Now an outlaw and unable to find honest work, Billy encountered Jesse Evans, the leader of a gang of rustlers known as the Boys. With no other place to turn, Billy reluctantly joined the gang. Engaging in numerous felonies and later getting caught up in the infamous Lincoln County War, Billy's name soon spread across tabloid newspapers, making him one of the most infamous figures of the Old West. Legend has it that Billy the Kid killed 21 people before his untimely death at the age of 21. However, historical records suggest a more conservative estimate of around 9 killings. Nevertheless, the early days of Henry McCarty's life remain somewhat mysterious, as details about his childhood and upbringing are not entirely clear. After being arrested for stealing clothing from a Chinese laundry in September 1875, Billy's cunning and resourcefulness were on full display as he escaped by shimmying up the jailhouse chimney, eventually finding his way to southeast Arizona. There he joined a gang known for stealing horses, and in 1877 he fled to New Mexico after being charged with murder, joining yet another group of outlaws. By 1880, Billy's name was plastered across tabloid newspapers, and he became a symbol of the American loner, fighting against all odds and battling the corrupt government and business forces seeking his destruction. People were drawn to Billy the Kid. He was either seen as an outlaw to be feared or an emblem of defiance and rebellion against authority. The $500 reward on his head made Billy a wanted man, and it was New Mexico Sheriff Pat Garrett who eventually gunned him down on July 14, 1881. We finally reached the #1 outlaw in the history of the Old West, a name that strikes fear into the hearts of many, a gunslinger with a lethal reputation, none other than the notorious Jesse James. The notorious American outlaw is a name that has become synonymous with daring heists, train robberies, and a Robin Hood-like reputation in the Old West. Born in 1847 and raised in the Little Dixie area of western Missouri, Jesse grew up in a family with strong Southern sympathies and slave-owning ties. As the leader of the James Younger gang, Jesse played a pivotal role in their successful string of train, stagecoach, and bank robberies. While some have romanticized him as a modern-day Robin Hood, there isn't much evidence to support the notion that he actually gave back to the poor community. The myth of Jesse James as a benevolent outlaw grew thanks to the efforts of newspaper editor John Newman Edwards, who perpetuated the Robin Hood mythology. In truth, Jesse James and his gang were bold robbers, driven by a sense of vengeance and a refusal to let go of their Confederate cause, even after the Civil War ended. In his teenage years, James and his brother Frank joined a guerrilla unit responsible for the brutal murders of dozens of Union soldiers. As the gang's reputation grew, so did their audacity. They operated across various states from Iowa to Texas to West Virginia, committing more than 20 bank and train robberies between 1860 and 1882. Their total haul was estimated to be around $200,000, a considerable sum in those days. What set Jesse James apart was his audacious approach to robbery. He didn't hesitate to strike banks and trains, even in broad daylight, leaving authorities and citizens astonished at his brazenness. In one daring move, he stopped railroad engines to rob their trains successfully and make a clean getaway. The legend of Jesse James continued to grow with each mention in newspapers, fueling his love for attention and notoriety. He relished the image of being a bold robber, comparing himself to historical figures like Alexander the Great Julius Caesar, and Napoleon Bonaparte. While there's no doubt that James stole from the rich, there's little evidence to suggest that he was a benevolent figure who shared his loot with the less fortunate. Instead, he and his gang were ruthless, and anyone who got in their way faced the risk of being mercilessly killed. By 1881, the pressure on the James Younger gang had reached its peak, and the governor of Missouri issued a $10,000 reward for the capture of Jesse and Frank James. The end came on April 3rd, 1882, when Jesse James was shot and killed by one of his own gang members, Robert Ford. Ford, guilty of murder, was later pardoned by the governor, leading to a controversial end to the story and one of the Wild West's most infamous outlaws. And they said, crime doesn't pay. Thank you for joining us on this wild ride through the Old West's deadliest outlaws. Stay tuned for more fascinating history. Hit the like button and subscribe if you enjoyed it.